I'm Holly Constant.
And I'm Maddie Hockaday. We really love Parks and Rec, and we really love behind-the-scenes details.
So we're researching everything from DVD extras like deleted scenes and commentaries,
plus interviewing cast and crew who actually worked on the show.
We also bring on guests and friends to geek out about everything parks.
So join us, you tropical fish.
This is literally the best Parks and Rec rewatch podcast.
We're your park pals.
There's a park and some pals, and there's also therapy too.
You guys, you guys, we have such an incredible show today. I'm so excited. We have the amazing Yvans Jordain, who played Councilman Howser. We really hit it off right away. I mean, I would say he's just our people as far as like therapy. He studied psychology. He took a break from acting. So we spent the first couple, I don't even know, like 15, 20 minutes talking about that, which was so lovely, because acting just wasn't for him at the time. And I feel like so many actors go through that where they just need to take a break. But it's hard to take a break because you're like, oh no, people will forget about me and whatever. But you have to do what's right for you. So I really commend him for doing that. And then, working in psychology, I'll let him tell the story. But I just wanted to make it clear that it was so lovely and so nice and kind. I felt lighter afterwards because, we were just very in tune with energy, I feel. Does that make sense? I know it sounds very like woo-woo spiritual, but it was woo-woo and spiritual, and I liked it. So Maddie is not with me today on this one. She is still with her sweet Killian baby. So she should be joining us soon, hopefully. But I'm so glad that I got to talk to Yvans, and we, make sure you follow him. I'm going to tag him below in the show notes, but I'm also going to tag him in our Instagram. He is on a Paxlovid commercial. I get right into it, and I talk about how I was so excited to see him because this is when he came back from his break. It was amazing. And then he's also in Single Drunk Female, so check that out. But I'm really excited that we got a chance to talk. So he's in so many episodes, so I'm just going to let you guys enjoy the conversation. But please let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast because that's how people find us. That's how we can spread the joy of Parks and Rec. Please, 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 I'm begging to, write that review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And then subscribe to bonus pods for $3 a month. If you want extra content from me, my comedy, and we'll talk about parks as well. So please do that. And I hope to see you guys next time. But other than that, please welcome the amazing, spiritual, wonderful, just nicest man, Councilman Howser and Yvans Jordain. Also, I don't know who needs to hear this, and I'm sorry for blocking the time with Yvans, but I think he would approve of me saying this. Take that trip, do that thing that you've been putting off, or if you can afford it, or if you can figure out a way to like use points or use some of your savings or whatever, because I just feel like we are all in a moment of like, oh my God, I'm like, there's so much going on. We're working really hard, all these things. Well, maybe I'm just projecting on you, but I know there are other people out there. So if you need to do that thing, if you need to take that trip, if you need to maybe just go away for one literal day to just take a break from what is happening in this, like zoom out is what I'm saying. Zoom out, come back. And and I think that is also kind of what Yvans would talk about with his break too. So I'm just saying. So it doesn't matter if it's acting. It can be anything. So, okay, that's my end for my soapbox. I'm just telling you, do what you need to do. Okay, please enjoy Yvans. This was so fun. Thank you, Yvans, for coming on. Okay, bye.
There's a park and some pals, and there's also therapy too.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, Holly.
Yay, thank you so much for being here. Hi, how are you?
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun. What a dream come true to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I wanted to mention too, I was going to say it in the email and then I was like, I'll just save it. I saw you in the Paxlovid commercial and I was like, oh my God, good for you.
Yeah. Actually, that's my way back into the industry because I had taken time off after Parks and Recreation. Yeah, I took about 5 years off.
Wow. Okay. What led to that decision? Do you mind asking? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Yeah. No, we can talk about it. I'm open book in terms of what you want to talk about regarding parks and career stuff. You're an actress, aren't
Yeah.
you?
I am. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
in Nashville, so I'm in the Southeast. And so I totally,
okay.
I mean, I understand without even having to ask why
Mhm.
you would want to take a break, but it's different for each person. So,
Yeah, it is different for each person. So, yeah, it worked out. I mean, I was very grateful, of course, to have gotten Parks and Recreation. But what a lot of people don't know is while I got Parks the same time, I was accepted into grad school for clinical psychology.
oh my God.
So I was doing classes all day Saturday and then shooting Parks on the weeks that they asked me to come in.
Well,
So
congratulations on getting accepted to that, though. That's amazing.
yeah, thank you. So that was what was going on when I was doing Parks. So I think if I was a more business minded actor, I would have taken what was going on with Parks and parlayed into other things. But that wasn't where my thoughts were at the time. I was doing what I love, but I also had another side to me. I love psychology and what that brings. So I was exploring that side as well because I was getting so disillusioned with the business being in California and Parks
Yeah.
happened. Of course, they always say you book a trip, you want to get a job, book a trip somewhere. And
Yep.
I was like, okay, I'm done with the industry for now. Let me just go in a different direction. And then Parks came along.
Oh
So
my
it
gosh.
just made it. Yeah.
And then after Parks, you took another break, or was that something where after Parks, you kind of went forward with it?
Yeah. After Parks, that's what it was, is I was still doing the grad program and doing Parks at the
Oh.
same time. And I was working as a therapist
Oh.
with family and children. So when I would get the call, I would reschedule because I was going to the school system. So I was able to pick a different time when I would take the kids out to do therapy with them. So it allowed me to switch my schedule around when I had to jump into to do a spot with Parks and Recreation, which started out the first time I did it. I thought they didn't like me because I wasn't new to the comedy where they would rewrite your jokes in the moment and then come back and give
Sure.
you something else to do. So I wasn't familiar with that process as much. So I thought, oh, they didn't like what I was doing, so they changed the joke because it wasn't landing the way they wanted it to. So I was like, okay, that's fine, and moved on. And my agent called me back, I think it was a year later, because it was the first season that I was introduced. And then a year later said, oh, they want you back. I was like, really? I thought they didn't. She's like, no, they want you back. They like the Councilman Howser and they have ideas for it. And I was like, okay, I'll go with the flow. And then subsequently following, all the other episodes came up as a result of it.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I have so many
Yeah.
things to respond to what you
Yeah.
said. Okay, first of all, congratulations on the therapy. We love therapy here. Our tagline is "There's also therapy too," because Maddie, my co-host, who just had a baby, which is why she's not here, is a music therapist.
Congratulations to her.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. And
Yeah.
I'm accepting the thank you for her.
Yes.
I'm an auntie, so I'm
Oh,
accepting it
great.
too.
Great.
But anyways, she is a music therapist. She's not doing music therapy right now, but that's what she studied. We met in school for music, and she was studying music therapy, and I was doing more performance kind of stuff. But we always talk about how much we love therapists and therapy and all that stuff. So very well, we respect it so much. So I'm so glad.
Thank you. So do I,
Yeah.
actually, because I know it's very helpful for a lot of people.
Oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
especially families. She was working so closely with families and how to best serve their kids and their, environment around them. Because she was working, one of her passions is autism and working with autistic children and families. And she was she is still very passionate about that. So I'm so glad that she's going to get to hear this. And
Wow. This is why, actually, when I left, I did leave after Parks and Recreation. I did a couple episodic stuff, but at the same time, it wasn't fun. The auditioning process wasn't fun for me anymore. I used to look forward to them. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this one? It became where I was, I was getting anxiety around auditioning, and I was like, something's changed, and I need to figure it out. So let me just take a back, and I accepted a position as a supervisor for a regional center where we provide services to the developmentally disabled community, autism spectrum, and and it was the adult division. So there was people that have gone through our system that are now adults living in different facilities that we funded for. So I ended up taking a position as a supervisor, and I had 13 staff that I supervised that actually went out and did the direct care, which I couldn't do because I'm an empath, and it would just
Mm-hmm.
rip me apart to keep. That's why I left therapy. I was like, I could do
Yeah.
I could be a supervisor. I like working with people and motivating them and working with them to get to a goal. I just was not good at the direct service with the patients and the clients because it just affected me too deeply.
Yeah, I think Maddie would 100% relate to that. We've talked about that a lot. And I mean, I'm not going to speak like for her completely, obviously, but yeah, we've talked a bunch of times, especially it's so exhausting, first of all. And then also, I don't think therapists are paid enough, especially in those kinds of jobs for families specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying, and that's the thing with therapists. Most of the time, if you're really, same with teachers and nurses, if you're passionate about it, you're going to do it regardless, but it wears on you so much.
The burnout rate is
I
high.
think, yeah. And she was getting hit a lot because they can't control their, functions sometimes. And so it was just like, it was a lot. And I think that she would say this too. So, I'll cut this out if she doesn't approve, but I totally think that she would agree. And like, because not many people think about it. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we can kind of bring that awareness to it because it's like, it's just not really talked about in the way that I think it needs to be. So, or at least it's not part of the general conversation. Obviously it's gotten a lot better, but yeah, that makes so much sense. And then acting wise, like, I mean, even if you're not doing something crazy with the therapy, like, if it becomes an anxiety, like this is so stressful job, I can't even perform the audition, then like what is the point? Because
what is the point? Exactly.
It is a job, it is work, but it's also like supposed to be fun at the same time.
Most times it's supposed to be fun. Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, well, that is so great. Thank you for sharing that backstory. That's amazing. Are you still working with did you leave that supervisor?
No, I've shifted into full-time acting now.
Okay.
I've shifted into full-time acting. So that's why I said I jumped back in after, because I was with the company for 5 years and I'd given myself 5 years with the company. And then I would decide whether I would continue or make the switch back to, and I was still doing readings and I was still doing directing for friends and what have you and coaching my friends. That's how I stayed tangentially involved with the business, but I wasn't directly going out there myself with it. Until
I really feel like if you leave, there's not really like a officially leaving. It's more of like it's just not going to be full time anymore. Yeah,
exactly. So I just took that time. I took that time for myself to really, to really. And you're
I'm
a
proud of you.
So you understand it. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think so many times we push ourselves and we're like, no, I'm just going to keep fighting, keep going. Yeah. And it's just like, no. You can take the time. Acting will always be here. It really will be. I mean, I feel like there's this scarcity mindset that is really hard to push against because and like really resist that because it's just not true all of the time. Like sometimes it is, sure. But like it will always be there for you. There will always be agents. There will always be things you can audition for, So I think that when you need that mental space, like it's hard though because you're like, taught that everybody's gonna like forget about me. I'm never gonna do this again.
I know it was absolutely, and I've been in this industry. I was thinking about it because I was talking to my best friend about it. It's been over 30 years that I've been considered a professional actor. If I look at it, because I became a professional actor, I got my SAG card in 1993.
Okay. Wow.
So if I'm going from that date moving forward, that's when I was considered a professional actor. But I did move to LA till 98, which is a lot older. And for actors to come to LA, because they usually said, and the casting director told me this, a good friend of mine said that, look, for coming to LA, you need to either be called by the industry or you're coming off a Tony or, Tony Award nomination, or don't bother coming. Well, I didn't have any of those categories. So when I came out anyway, but
when
that's
you say
usually
called, do you mean like they called you to come out to a show, or do you mean like a calling, like a spiritual calling?
No. They're like, basically they saw you in something out in New York and they're like, we'd like you to come out here and audition for this, or we need to see you for this. Yeah. So they've done that. That wasn't my situation.
Which is so, it seems like such a, I don't know, to me that seems like maybe an outdated way to think about it.
Well, it's totally different now.
Yeah.
It's
and
totally
I mean, I get it back in the day, like
Yeah.
maybe that was the case. And even now,
Yeah.
I think some people will say that to you, like, don't move out here
Yeah.
until you have something. And I don't know if that's just that. I didn't do that either. I moved to LA, like right out of college. And I mean, now I'm in Nashville, but I lived in LA for about almost 5 years.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you have to be there to like network and meet people. And if you hate LA, obviously, like maybe you do your work somewhere else and then you can come out when needed. But yeah, so I mean, it worked out.
Yeah, I love LA. I've always loved to be in LA. So
I do too.
I think, speaking of spiritual calling, my spiritual calling was to be in LA. So it was where I needed to be. And I was fortunate because my first job, I moved in 98. And I got an agent. It took me a year to get my first job. My first job was Will and Grace.
Oh,
and that was my introduction. My first, on camera. I mean, I've done commercials in New York. I've done a lot of theater in New York. But when I got to LA, my first job was Will and Grace. Yeah, which was like, and you're coming into the business, you don't know, you're still excited, and it was very thrilling. But I quickly realized that I need a lot more of those in order to really start to sustain myself in this business.
Yes, definitely. I mean, once you pay agents and taxes and all that stuff, it's like...
Yeah, exactly. So the reality hit really quick. Really quick.
Were you so you were in New York before LA, you said?
Yeah, I was in New York before LA. I did my undergrad at Rutgers.
Okay.
And then I moved to New York and started studying with a really terrific acting coach. Alan Savage is his name. I'd studied took some courses at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and I studied with some other actors. But the acting teacher that I said that I learned the most from and really honed my skills was a man named Alan Savage. And he had a small class, about 8 to 12 people. That's the only amount he would allow in his class. But I understood why, because it was very intimate and we got into a lot of personal things in order to flesh out characters. So he created a safe space for that everyone to be able to do that kind of work. And when I had to audition, because I had to audition for him, and it was kind of serendipitous because I met him in a gym, and he was telling me that he had won an Emmy for a movie he had shot. And in that movie I happened to see the movie when I was a kid, and it stopped me from doing drugs because it was about a kid who OD'd. And I said to him, and when he mentioned it, I said, "Is the movie called Not Me?" And he's like, "Yeah, how do you know that?" I was like, "That movie stopped me from doing drugs." And he's like, "Wow, I've never had anyone share that experience that movie had that kind of effect on me." I was like, "Oh yeah." I mean, I had friends who were delving into and playing. I was like, I was focused. I was going to go to college, and I was going to get a scholarship and go from there. And so he said, "You know what? I like you. If you ever need any help, let me know." That's when he told me he was an acting teacher, but he had no space for me. I had to wait a year to get into his class.
Wow.
A year.
Oh my gosh. The acting, I'm dealing with that here in Nashville. Like the waiting list to get into acting classes is so wild because everybody's like, "You should be in a class." And I'm like, I want to be in a class. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah. But, and it was interesting because when I had to do a monologue for him to get accepted into his class because he said, "I have some really talented people and I like to keep it small." Well, I got into class. The people that was in the class that I went to audition were the likes of Hidden Battle, because he was on Broadway at the time. Hidden Battle just passed away he was 3-time Tony winner, dancer, actor, singer, did all 3 of them brilliantly. Kim Cattrall, she had just done Mannequin. And so she was in class with him, and she hadn't become Kim Cattrall yet. She was on her way. So it was people, Norm Lewis. It was just people like that in the class. And I'm like, I knew who they were face-wise.
Sure.
But then, of course, they took off to do really great things. And I sat in class and I was like so nervous. But the way he ran the class was everyone got to say what they thought of your monologue. So I got the feedback, and he was like, I think you're nervous and what have you. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then he pulled me aside. He said, "Go back. I'm going to give you a note." And he gave me the note, and he said, "Come back and do it." Now that I've gotten it all in my system, and it was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. I took the note and I did it. And everybody was much more responsive. I was like, "Great, what have you?" And I got into his class. And then I started studying with him. So
Isn't that the craziest thing about acting, where it's like you care so much, but you have to pretend you don't care or actually not care
yeah, I know,
to make it
you
work?
know,
Oh my
to make it
God.
work. Yeah,
Ugh,
it's
that's
it's
amazing though. So did you study oh sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh,
You
I
can
was just
ask.
gonna ask, did you study what you call it? Acting in your undergraduate as well, or was it more psychology?
It was psychology was my communication with psychology was advertising was the main,
Oh, okay.
and I took acting classes and made it my minor. So
Oh,
I had
got it.
a
Okay.
theater minor in it, and I discovered acting. I think it was either my junior or sophomore year, so it was kind of late in the game when I decided. So the only thing I could do was I just wrapped up all my courses to make it my minor because I didn't start my freshman year. By the time I discovered it, I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Oh wow, I really want to do this." By that time, and Bill Esper was the head of the department, and
Amazing.
his second in command was a woman named Flanagan, and she's the one that kind of gave me a little nudge in that direction. So when I got to New York, I was looking for acting coaches because I realized that's really what I wanted to do. But my day job was working at a health club. I was a manager at a health club when I got to New
Oh,
York. I was
okay.
like 22 years old, and at the time I was an athlete. I grew up playing soccer my whole life, and then I used to tumble, so I was a cheerleader for Rutgers,
Oh
which was the
my gosh.
performance side of me was coming out, and so
Yeah.
moved that into acting. So
Tumbling
that's
is
where
so
the
hard.
journey.
Good for you. That's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
I think it is.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. It is actually.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, and I always say with acting, I feel like, you if you go to school, that's amazing and wonderful because you have it on your resume. But I also feel like
Hmm.
acting can also be accomplished, like training wise, almost like a trade school kind of vibe, where like
Oh
as
yeah.
long as you're taking those classes and taking them from people who you trust and can learn from, I think
Yeah.
that's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's still good.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's a profession, and I think the reason why so many people think they can do it is because your instrument is you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have great personalities and they can do that and make money doing that because their personality is so infectious. People want to be around them, and that's one thing. But if you're going to be an artist as an actor, it requires skill and it requires training so that you're able to make the adjustments when the director saying, you know what, I don't think that's what the character is feeling at this moment. I need you to really reconsider how you're going to attack that scene and
Mm-hmm.
make it so that these are the elements I'm looking for. And you're able to take that and say, okay, yeah, so what is my backstory that I came up with that can fuel and make that shift happen?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that training, then the director will tell you they want to change and you'll just give them the same thing over and over again. And it kills
Right.
your, it just doesn't
Right.
go in the direction. And then you become that person that, they're just a personality. You're not going to get much more from them than what you got.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
Taking direction. So, like, technically, was it have? Was it 5 years or something that you took off that you were at that job, or was it a little bit more than that you kind of
It
took a
was
pause?
5 years. It was 5 years,
Okay.
actually. 5 years.
Okay.
And
Wow.
and it was interesting because I said to myself, I'm going to think about it 5 years. But the universe always comes around. I'm very spiritual in that way, and I believe
Oh my gosh, same.
in how things come together. There's a lot of serendipity in my life, how I moved to LA, how I got my acting work. There's always some kind of synchronicity and serendipity to it. And
Mm-hmm.
when a friend of mine booked a pilot, and she said they're looking for the uncle, and you'd be perfect for it because I'm Haitian born, so
Okay.
and I speak Creole and French, and she's like they're looking for somebody who do that. So why don't you you should audition? And I said, look, I've let all my platforms go. I don't even have updated information, so I'm gonna have to pass on this one. So she took it upon herself, and this was 2021. She took it upon herself and went and got my stuff. And she looked at my resume. She's like, "Oh my God, you've done a lot." And she's like, why aren't you acting? You're so good. I've seen your reel and blah blah." And I was like, "Well,
Hmm.
I'm going to get back into it, but I'm working. I'm working this job right now. I got to figure things." And she just went. She's like, she sent my information to her manager and her agent, and they both reached out to me and said, "We'd like to meet with you." And I was like, "Sure." They're coming to me. I'm just going to go with the flow. I signed with them, and that was in 2022. I signed with them. And that was in March, I signed with them. And I booked Single Drunk Female that August.
I saw that. Okay.
That August, I booked Single Drunk Female. And then I was getting a lot of callbacks and a lot of good feedback from the casting directors saying, hey, we like what he's doing. We just need to find the right things for him. So the positive response made me go, maybe it's time for me to get back into the game and really take it more seriously and make that the focus instead of trying to juggle two jobs. And once the Paxlovid commercial came shortly after that, and I was like, okay, let me just jump in and make it all one direction. And
yay!
That's what I did.
I loved it. I was like, oh my God, Councilman Howser is teaching us about COVID.
I was like, okay, here we go. Holly, I have to tell you, I had no idea that Parks and Recreation had the response that it had.
Oh
I had
my
no
gosh.
idea.
Well, and it's gotten bigger with all of these streaming services as it's resurfacing, especially with The Office. I mean, I don't know if Parks has resurfaced as much as I would say The Office is, because The Office has like 800,000 like books, podcasts, like all these things. And yeah, now that I've always been a Parks and Rec fan, like I don't even know when I started watching it, to be honest with you, but I've always been like, I was watching it when it was on. I watched the finale, all that stuff. And then you might hear my cat, by the way. I didn't want to lock her out of the room, but
no, I love cats, so you're in good company.
Yay. Well, anyhow, so then I watched the 2020 thing, and then Maddie and I were sending voice memos back and forth to each other because she actually lives in Arizona, and then we were like, I wonder if we should just start a podcast because I think other people would be interested in talking about this stuff, and then we landed on Parks and Rec because we're both Parks and Rec fans, and I have to say, the guest stars that I've talked to have been, or like crew or whoever, have been so kind and generous with their time. I mean, there's only like, I can count on one finger who it might have been like, oh, they don't want to talk about it anymore. It's fine. But for the most part, I would say like 95% of people are just like, oh my God, I loved that job. That was so fun. I'd love to talk about it again. And it really goes from the top down because I've heard Amy Poehler obviously is like just the best, and it just trickled down. And I think it trickles down into the audience too. Like the people who love Parks and Rec love the people who also love Parks and Rec. It's such a community. Yeah. So it's so wonderful, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk about it.
Oh, thank you so much. I was a friend of mine actually when I was working at the job. I didn't realize the impact that Parks was having outside of just when it ran the years that it ran, and I knew that it was on the streaming services, and I knew. And sometimes, occasionally, I get somebody when I was working as a therapist said, "What are you? Did you?" And I was like, oh yeah, but yeah, that was I did that a while ago kind of thing, kind of brush it off so the focus could be on what we were doing therapeutically. And when I started working for this company, when I got there, they had all Googled me, and I didn't know this because I wasn't Googling anybody. So they all Googled me, and I'm coming in clean and meeting my staff for the first time because I'm a new supervisor in there. And they're all like, one of the guys said to me, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I know that you're an actor. And I was like, okay, that's something I did do. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, And he's like, well, we all Googled you and we know you did it. And I was like, wow. So everybody, my staff and everybody was talking about the fact that I'm an actor. And then I started to find out about the Parks and Recreation part because somebody said, you're a meme. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I didn't even know what a meme was at the time. So that's how uninvolved I was.
Meme. Tell me.
I know with any of that. And then he said, have you Googled your name? I was like, yeah, but it's, some of the stuff that comes up, I don't even have any connection to it. It's just people creating content. And he's like, no, Google your Councilman Howser name. I was like, no. He's like, try and Google that. When I did, I saw all this conversation about Parks and Rec and Councilman Howser and how he didn't support Leslie Knope and he should have done. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What is, and that's when I started to learn. I said, oh my, I didn't even know there was a podcast about Parks and Recreation.
Oh my gosh.
There was so much I didn't know.
The fandom is wild.
It's wild. There's a cop that, I love Nick Offerman. I love that man. And he has a mug with his mustache. And, there's like, people created stuff. His character, I love his character. He's my favorite character on the show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Nick was my favorite character on the show. And of course, outside of Amy. Amy was, as they said, such a gracious, so incredibly talented. She made it look so easy, and it was not, because she had so much dialogue to remember. When we would finish our scene, she had to jump into the next scene and go through that whole thing. But what I really appreciated with her is that I'm not part of the improv machine that she's from. So a lot of the people, the guest stars that would come in, came from that background, so they could roll with things. And I know that I was the straight man to her wackiness. And I was like, I'll stick to that, because I'm not one that thinks really quick on my feet and do all these gymnastics with improv. And they would have something called a fun run after you do the dialogue. They would do a fun run just to spin off and vibe with each other. And Amy would always lob me a line to try to get me to vibe with them in improv. And I had like 2 words. That's the only thing I could come up with, because I could never flow like they were flowing.
I mean, there's a reason there's training for improv.
Exactly. There's training for it. I understood the yes and part of it. You always want to go yes and, but my yes and was like, I don't know what else is coming up, because they were just so good at it. I mean, the episode with
No, go ahead. The episode with
Patton Oswalt.
Oh yeah.
Patton
my
Oswalt.
gosh.
Filibuster.
Yes.
He was. That. Genius.
The Star Wars thing, and the Marvel Universe connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have read many a blog / fandom thing about how that was all him. And I don't know if he made it up in the moment or I think he had probably been thinking about this, because I know he's a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But like, that was one of the behind the scenes things that I found as well, where he was, they didn't really plan for him to talk that long, but they ended up filming all of it, right? Because he just kept going, and it was so interesting. And then I think, I don't know if it's true, I'm sure you can tell me, but it was like in that episode, particularly when Chris Pratt, Andy leans forward, and I think I think it's Jam leans forward as well, and I don't think that was meant to happen from what I've read. They were just like so intrigued by it and playing along.
We all were. We were supposed to be being worn down by the filibuster. Just the cat. We're just like as a time when the tires are coming down, people are sweating, people are just like. It's on and on. That was the intent and the idea behind it. But he was so fascinating that we kept going, oh yeah, we're supposed to be wearing down, but we're like, what is happening? He is so engaging, but that wasn't what we're supposed to be. So we kept fighting the moment with wanting to hear him, because he was just riffing and it was hysterical. And Amy was of course chiming in, because she was feeding him by trying to interrupt him. And he's like, no. And he kept going. And then she's like, and she would, and it was just on and on. It was really a fantastic, fantastic moment. We all stood up and applauded when he was done.
That's amazing.
We all stood up and applauded. Yeah. We all stood up because
and for the audience, that's called, I think that episode's called like Ted Party or something like this, where they are trying to get rid of Ted Party, or Ted Party Day or whatever it is, where they throw you in the lake. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, because that one is, they're trying to get rid of all the laws. Remember?
Oh, yeah. That one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so I would love to hear, though, how you got your job on Parks and Rec in the first place. Like, any sides that you remember going in for the casting office, anything like that?
Yeah, I remember. Actually, I wasn't going to go to that audition because I was just leaving another audition when I got the call from my agent and said, hey, they would like to see you for this project. Can you make it? And they knew I was leaving one other. I was like, you know what? I don't know, because I looked at the sides. I looked at the part, and it's a councilman. I know I need to be in a suit. I didn't have a suit on coming from the other. I was going for something completely different. So I was like, by the time I turn around and go, and I won't make it in time. So I would have to decline on it. So she called the casting. She's like, look, can you see him later? And she called me back. She's like, they'll see you later. So I was like, well, okay, I guess I got to do it. So I went and got a suit and went over there. And when I got there, I was looking, and I had the side. So I worked on what I got. And when I got there, I saw some other guys in suits and ties. And it wasn't only African American. It was Black, it was white, it was Asian, it was Latino in suits. And I figured, that's the role that they're reading for, the same role I'm reading for. But I looked at their sides. They had something different than what I had. So I was like, And I said, is this the side for the councilman? I was like, yeah, it said Councilman Howser. And I was like, but I have this side. He's like, no, that's something else. Here's your side. To the assistant said. And I was like,
oh,
now
dang
I
it.
gotta,
You can
I
put
gotta
it on
like,
the show if you need to.
yeah. So I started to get nervous because I had no time. I already signed up and everything. And I was just at the last minute noticing that those guys had different sides than I had. They all had the Councilman Howser side. So I immediately went and got the councilman. I was looking at it and I was like, okay, this is what I can do with it. I'm just going to play with that and see what happens. And then there's like, Yvans, you're up. And I was like, okay, boom. So walked in and the casting director was like reading with me. And I took the opportunity because it's the scene where Pratt is on her back and it's, and we're having the dialogue. So I was looking completely, I made the choice to be in shock that this was happening and trying to have a conversation. And I kept diverting my eye to like, what the fuck are you doing? My underplaying is like, so eventually, and then next thing you know, I got the call and said I got the job. I was like, really? And it was one of those things where you have to trust your instincts because I had no time to think. I can only go by instincts and being in the moment with her and just reacting off what was happening with the camera and use that. Totally. I made the camera something was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then,
I wonder what the other sides were. How did you get the wrong sides? That sucks.
It really sucks. My agent sent it. Yeah, my agent sent it. And I think she just clicked on the wrong thing instead of because they send you the different ones. But it worked. Yeah. It turned out, as I say, I don't begrudge or have any kind of envy over other people getting roles because I'm a firm believer that what's mine is mine.
Yeah, what's meant for you will not pass you.
Yeah, will not pass you. So that one was meant for me, even though it seemed like there was stuff that was sabotaging it at the moment, but it was meant for me. And it just turned out to be a blessing on so many levels that I was not even anticipating just from taking that call and making it happen. When my agent pushed and said, they'll see you.
Right, totally.
Because that office liked me and they kept bringing me in for other things. It's just I never booked anything. But they liked me and
that
kept bringing me in. Yeah.
It's nice when they bring you in all the time. I mean, it's one of those things that's like half annoying, but half more grateful because you're like, wait, if you like me, then can I just please get this one? But again, it's not meant for that. Maybe all those things weren't meant for you, which is what you have to keep reminding yourself of. The thing that sucks is when you think that something really is meant for you, like I nailed it, but it just, again, it wasn't for you spiritually.
It wasn't for me. I know. And then you and then you happen to watch what it is you went up for and you see it and you're like, oh, okay, that's the choice they made in one direction.
Right,
okay,
yes.
I get it. I know, you're like, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, fine.
Okay, I guess whatever. It's like, not, like, I'm so happy for them. No, I totally get it. But speaking of that scene, actually, I was watching through like all the other episodes that you're in, and I didn't really realize. I mean, I kind of knew this, but especially watching them all back to back, it's really interesting that you have this through line of just being like the straight man, but also like just the one that's even keeled and they're always doing something crazy to you. Like they're bumping into you, they're fighting with a megaphone, and you're just always the one that like almost like a father figure, like the principal kind of.
Exactly.
Of like, are my kids fighting today?
I know. And that's the writers, because at one of the rap parties, the writer said, I was talking to the writers, and I said, when you first hired me, I didn't think that you guys he's like, oh my God, we love Councilman Howser. And he's like, that's why we keep, we love the fact that you're the anchor for the fodder that happens, because you're and they didn't use straight man, but basically, the idea was that I'm the legit one in terms of serious about the business and keeping the moral code and the compass going in the one direction. Meanwhile, everybody else is spinning in different directions. The wackiness is happening. And when they see me, it's kind of like a reset for them. And then they go off and do their things anyway. So that was the intention. It was a through line that they they were actually writing for throughout the episodes.
I mean,
and the
truly, because
seasons.
you truly are the anchor. I mean, Dexhart's having sex scandals. Jam is just trying to
Yes.
get money for his dentistry. Leslie's like, obviously, she's in the right most of the time, but her moral compass is sometimes like, you know, on her. It's only Leslie Knope's kind of party.
Yeah, exactly.
Not all the time. Obviously, like, she makes a lot of sacrifices to make the town better, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But like, she's the lead of the show, so it's like you got to have that other lead anchor. But that is so amazing. And did you know that you were coming back, or was it just a one-time thing for the first audition?
It was a one-time thing for the first audition. When I came back, it was a shock to me because that's why, like, I thought, I was like, yeah, they'll never hire me again because they didn't like what I did. That was where I went with
what an
it.
amazing turn of events.
It was. And then the following year because I only did one episode the first year. And then the second year I did, I think, 2 episodes. And each year they saw the value that I brought in, I guess. And then they started writing. The writers were like, oh, we get it now. He's the moral compass for what's going on. And we can use him in this capacity because that's the energy he's bringing. And so, and I think initially they wanted the energy from my character to be more like Ham, the dentist, or John Glazer.
Jam. Yeah.
John Glazer.
Yeah.
Jam. John Glazer's character, because he's the one that really combats with her. Because the initial scene that I did with her, I was supposed to yell at her to get off his back.
Yes. Oh,
and that joke wasn't landing. That was the line. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was the line.
Yeah,
so we could still create this tension, but the joke wasn't landing that way. And so they changed it where I said, I got to get going. You know, I don't have time for this. And this is why I said, oh my God, that's not working. What they wanted from me is not working because they wanted somebody to be in odds with her and call her out every time, which I did, but I didn't do it the way Jam does it. Jam comes in, they go, and that way. And Glazer is so perfect for that. So
good.
They kind of came up with a character that John had, and then that took off. Because his character really made it. And he is from that world of improv. So he was able to really just spin with her. And they came up with some great, great scenes between the two of them. And of course, the writing supports everything that they were doing.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, that it makes it, I love hearing, that's one of my favorite things why I ask like how the audition was, if you remember what the sides were, because I love hearing like from script to set, like what the differences might have been. Because I know that network shows will actually change stuff because like the audience isn't laughing. But I feel like with the improv thing, they're just shaking things up just to see what's funniest, like the joke is king kind of thing. Which is so nice. And it's not anything about how the audience is perceiving it. It's just like, is it funny? Is it working? You know what I mean? Like, which I guess is like 5%. Yeah, how is it that the audience is working? But I actually love that so much because yes, you have that shocked face on your, like when you see her riding Andy or Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
And I think I think that was a great decision though, because walking with her as she's on his back.
I know. That was funny. That was the funny moment.
So much funnier than being like, no, get off. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
my God.
So that line was changed for me to say, you know, I got to get going. I can't continue this conversation. So it was interesting that, you know, and then when we both walking, and that was her, you know, that was her. That wasn't part of the line. It's just when they switched my line, she came up with, you know, I'll walk with you.
Oh my
As opposed to because she was coming out of that direction and instead of continue with me, she was turning around and said, I'll walk with you. And it was like, and they kept it.
That is amazing. That is so funny. Oh my gosh. What an amazing brain to have.
Yeah.
Those ideas.
It was and I'll have to say, and I know you've heard this from the other actors and crew members, is that because we were the little engine that could, because we never knew each season we were coming back, because NBC was always questionable whether they were going to renew Parks every season. So the joy and the appreciation for having been brought back, and it turned out to be 7 seasons altogether, is a testament to the fact that the cast and crew were so grateful and appreciative. And Amy being, you know, including the producers too, but Amy being the first on the call sheet, set the tone of appreciation for being there. And that trickled down to everybody that came on set to work. It was just a love fest to try to get the best product out that we could. in a fun
Yeah.
and just jovial way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds incredible. And I can't imagine what an amazing, surprise and gratitude moment that was for you to have that one scene. And then there's 19 episodes that you're in. Like,
I
what?
know. And
That's
yeah,
and
and
half of it is like it's some of the scenes are only like 3 seconds, but God, are
yeah,
they worth it? They're so
yeah.
funny.
I got to tell you, Holly, I'm thinking to myself when I ready to get the sides, I was like, oh, is that all you want me to do? Okay, fine. I'll make the most of what that is and we'll make it happen. But as an actor, you always think, maybe they don't think I can do more than what I'm doing. But also it fed what they were trying to do with the characters and making the scenes funny in the way that they were, because it just needed that punch and then punch and move on, which is how
Literally,
they used it.
and that one punch shows the character so much for who Leslie and Jam were fighting to get in Dexheart, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're like, if you that foil of you hadn't been in there as like, I don't know, it would have just been maybe a little like we wouldn't as the audience maybe have related to it as much. But I feel like we as the audience are you.
Yes,
like, you know
exactly.
what I'm saying? Like we are like, yeah, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
what?
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. So I'm the audience seeing how the wackiness of what they're doing, especially you're supposed to be professionals and all the, stuff that happens in their personal lives being filtered into the professional life, which happens, but it's just the way it's done in the way that the show chose to highlight it, made it that kind of absurdist and funny, where people could relate to all the characters.
Yeah, totally. And that was a question that Maddie had in addition to, I was wondering the same thing of like, how would that have, or how was it to watch them go back and forth? Like, I mean, it must have been like a masterclass of comedy to just sit there.
Masterclass. I was hoping that they didn't have, like, I always check to make sure I wasn't on camera because I was like,
making facial expressions. Yes,
exactly. Because they were really, especially when they did the fun runs. When they did the fun runs, which is what they call the scene where they just ad-libbed and improvised. They still stuck somewhat to the script. They just spun off it, which I found to be really just genius in how they did that. And Amy was just so good at it. And some of the cast members that came in, especially some of the guest stars, when they had scenes, especially in the lobby, and they were able to go back and forth. They didn't keep some of them because they were off script. But it was just a masterclass in watching how it's done well.
How far in advance would they? Yeah, totally consistent. How far in advance would they tell you that they wanted you to come back on set? Was it like they gave you a week, or was it like we're shooting tomorrow?
Yeah, no, it was at least a week because they would let my agent know they're writing my character in the next episode. So it's like, let your client know that the next episode they're going to be in, and we'll send them the information. Keep this week open. So I knew that I have a week to keep open, and then they give me the dates, and then I'd go in and shoot on those dates, and I would rearrange my schedule. Thank God they did that way because I didn't want to. I hated canceling sessions, especially with therapy. There's that bond and you create with the client, and I did not want to shortchange them by canceling sessions, which I thank God never had to cancel a session.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it always worked out where I was able to rearrange the schedule and make it work.
Yeah. And that's also, I mean, depending on the client, that could really shake up how they go through their week if they have something that an appointment that's canceled or whatever,
Absolutely.
Which it has to happen sometimes. I'm just saying, depending on the client and how they can handle it. You know what I mean?
How they can handle it. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as I was watching, I wrote this down as I was watching some of your episodes. So I didn't realize because in the first couple episodes, we know that you're a council member, and we know that you're kind of like in the middle, not extreme on either side, but we don't really see / know that until like later on that you kind of, I don't know, they didn't say it on the nameplate, but that you're kind of like the leader. You're the one that's at the top of the chairs, you know what I mean? And you have the gavel in some of the meetings.
I'm the president of the board.
I did not know that. You are the president of the board. The council members. I was like, that's so amazing to hear and see.
Yeah. And that's how they created that moral compass, because as a president of the board, I'm trying to wrangle the the craziness and
Yes.
keep everybody focused on the subject at hand, which I always successfully did not do. Because it always went in a different direction.
I know. I felt like a lot of times you were just watching it happen and just okay, if
just
it gets
watching it happen. It's like
physical, maybe I'll step in, but other than that, we'll just watch it happen.
It's like the dad at the dinner table and the kids are going at it. And you're like,
yes.
I don't know how many times I could tell them, but they're adults now. They should be able to handle themselves.
Yeah. So. And I wanted to talk to you about your scene because right now we just passed when Leslie's running for the council, but she's not on it yet. And I want to talk about your scene with Rob Lowe where you have to tell him you might not have the job because Bobby Newport's going to hire his own person. He's not happy you've been volunteering. That one was a juicy, chunky scene. I was like, oh my gosh, I did not know that because I've always wondered as I've been analyzing the show, we're like, is it okay that Rob Lowe's character is volunteering for her campaign, even though he's city manager? Which technically I think it is, but obviously that came back to get him. So I just thought that was really cool. Do you have any memories of working with Rob Lowe? And
I do. I do. And I actually loved that scene a lot because I learned a lot in terms of just my own personal managing of nerves. Because working with Rob and first I was nervous because I think he's fantastic in that part. He was so fantastic. And of course I've watched him when I was not an actor. I've known of him when I wasn't even an actor.
He's been in our lives for the whole time.
Yeah. He grew up, with me in a sense. And then to be there and now I'm doing work with him, and he was incredibly gracious, very professional, kind. And if the first time I did the scene, it went and he's like, fine. The director came back and gave me a note and I made the change. And when he came back and gave me the note, I'm one of these actors, unfortunately for me, is that when I'm nervous, I pour down and sweat.
Really?
Yes. It's like I can't hide my nerves because it comes pouring down. In between the first take and the second take, I was like, I need tissues, please. And I was like, okay, how do I say that I need tissues so they know that I'm sweating? I feel it. And I looked at it in the back of the scene. There's a drop of sweat in the back of my neck when they cut and they're giving his POV. And I'm talking to him. I was like, yeah, I could see, because I was just patting down before the scene without trying to mess up with the little light makeup they had on me. So I tried to pat down.
I didn't see it. So I mean, I'll have to go back. That's a nice little Easter egg behind the scenes moment, though, that I'll have to look at next time. But I didn't see it.
The nerves were running through me left and right. But that's why I said it's an important moment for me because it's one of those where I was able to make the switch because the negative self-talk could kick in when you get a note. Because you think, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then you get a note. And I was like, oh, okay, let me make that adjustment. And it worked out because he wanted me to cut him off, but not cut him off, but really come right after. And he's like, Councilman, when he says the line that Ron Swanson, who told him something like that, he's like, Ron Swanson, he jumps in and he's like, I want you to really stop him and say, look, and then go from there. And I forgot what I'd done before. Which is what I did. I was like, pin it. And then we go and we have that. And he said, bring him around and make sure that there's nobody listening to your private conversation. And I was like, got it. So that was the movement that was added to make that scene work from what I did initially. They made that adjustment. He's like, bring them around so we can the camera's going to be set up there so we can capture that interaction away from so that people can walk behind you because you're in a hallway situation. So I was like, okay, got it. If that's what so that's what we did. But I remember getting that note and trying to make that adjustment really quick in my head because I'm running the lines in my head and I'm just making sure I stay on top of what I want to say. And so that's where the nerves kind of all right, just got a note to make all these changes and now I got to process it and put it in and still hit my lines. And I was like, okay.
I know. Well, especially as a guest star, when you're coming in for a day or whatever, you're like, I don't want to fuck up the whole thing. And I have to wrap. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you. And I have to ramp up to where they are because I'm coming in and they've been in their groove and I've got to ramp up to get to where they are in the groove that they're in. And that's the part is doing guest star roles and coming in as co-stars or guest stars is that, especially if you're working with one of the lead actors, they have their character set and they know their journey. They're comfortable in their skin. You're coming in, you have to come in and be as comfortable and hit and be at the level in terms of their groove and hit that stride with them. And that's always challenging when you're coming in.
Yeah, especially because you're like the new kid at school. You're just like,
yeah,
I know I belong here, but also this is creepy and weird sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's also, it is interesting though, because I think that's something that, you always forget, or I always forget. It's just like, and it takes practice, obviously, to just have it be a sense of play more than anything, because when a director gives you a note, unless they really are, a cruel person, most of the time that direction is just like, let's just play with it and see what happens from
and
that.
See what happens.
It's nothing personal or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just kind of reminding yourself of that. But that was, like you said, and like we were talking about, it's a chunky scene. I think it's juicy. So I'm glad that they gave you that.
Me too. I was very happy that they gave me that. It gave me a sense of I felt, and not. I felt at the time that they did. It wasn't because a lot of times in my head, I was thinking, I don't think they think I can act and do more than just a few. That's where my mind was going. But after talking to the writers, I realized that they was like, no, that we are intentionally making them the way it is.
Yes.
And when I got that scene, I was like, oh, okay. So it's that they want to have just enough to be the anchor, because like you said, I'm the audience. I'm the compass for the audience in terms of how they see the show. And so
and it's
made
that
sense.
Thing of, totally. And it's that thing of like, you are part of the whole. Without you, it wouldn't be a whole picture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that totally makes sense.
That's where the self-doubt and the negative talk as actors, you're like, well, I could do more. They probably don't think I can do more. That's why I'm not getting more. And and I had to shut it down, because it's very easy to go down that rabbit hole when you're trying to prove yourself and make a mark. But I just say, I'm just very grateful that it found the audience that it found, and that people are still enjoying and getting a sense, especially with all the political stuff that's happening. And you get a sense of what's happening politically through the absurdity. And the writers were so good to bring in certain political things that were happening. Like when New York passed the tax for drinking, the soda tax.
Yes.
And they came up with soda tax.
They brought that in.
They brought that in. Good. It's hilarious, because New York, at the time, Bloomberg was the mayor, and he put a soda tax to the sugar and all that. And she's with this big old soda, and she's slurping it and talking.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Oh my God, brilliant scene. Yeah, they were really good at incorporating real life into the show, which was in a comedic way, which is so brilliant. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was very...
but I do have a question about... There's this one scene. I don't know if you remember, but like you go out to the car. I was about to say car park. What am I, British?
The parking lot?
The parking lot with Jam's car, the yellow car. And it's so quick and fast. And I just wonder if you have any memories of that, what that day was like. Yeah,
that was a 2-day shoot, actually. And that was one, that day was a fun day. And I'll say this because we shot it on a Monday, and the SAG Awards were on that Sunday.
Oh!
Yeah, the SAG Awards that Sunday. So Amy and Tina Fey were up for the same role, because she was doing 30 Rock.
Uh-huh.
And they both were up for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. Tina Fey won. Yeah, Tina Fey won. So because we were all sitting at the board when we go outside that day. It's the board meeting, and then we go outside. And then he shows us the car, and we come back.
Right.
And we were all sitting while they were setting up the cameras and get everything together. She was joking around. She's like, who does a girl have to get an Emmy, a SAG award? And she's like, we're all laughing and having a good time about it. But what she said afterwards. She's like, I am so grateful that I get to come here on Monday, because the majority of the people that I was there with yesterday, which was the SAG Awards, do not have a job. Mm. They're still auditioning for jobs. Even though they were there for the awards and what have you, they were not working. Mm. And that's really something I think a lot of people that don't understand the Hollywood in terms of they think the glitz and glamour of actors is that it's not always consistent. To get a series regular role is really a needle in a haystack and lightning in a bottle when that opportunity happened, and for it to run consecutive years is even more phenomenal. So it's kind of a blessing, especially, and she was recognizing what a blessing was for her to have a series that is still airing and that people want to watch, while her contemporaries at the time were not in a show. And 30 Rock had just wrapped. So,
okay.
Tina Fey won that year, but they weren't coming back the next season either.
Right.
So those are,
wow. That's a really nice thing to hear. And I mean, for actors and non-actors alike, honestly, because that's just, that's the reality of it all, is that the award seasons, it's like, it's a really nice thing. It's really wonderful. But, it's also the job is the award in some ways. Obviously, the paycheck is really what's the award.
Yeah, of course.
you have to get paid for this hard work.
The paycheck's up a lot.
Okay, hello.
Yeah. Paycheck's up a lot.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, because it is such a small little bit that I was like, what? They just put this in, and I love her line afterwards of like, why did we come out here?
Yeah.
Everybody, even the stenographer comes out there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the part of it too that I loved about the writing, is that even her character, when she's going for something, she does not know. She's so intent on getting what she needs that she doesn't realize the absurdity of things she would do to get there. But at the same time, she did have the intelligence, the moral compass to understand there are certain things that's just like wrong. And and I'll just say that one of my favorite episodes is it's when the bookstore, and I can't think of the title of the show, but the bookstore that turned into a porn shop. Yeah. That had me, her reaction going, she's like, I don't recognize these books. And the movies, because it became a video store, and she's like, I don't recognize these videos, and she's naming them, and you're cracking up because she's not getting it. That it's and you see all the savory, the characters that are a little on the sketchy side in there. Oh my God, I laughed so hard. That episode. Oh my gosh.
I know, and that one's a hard one because Nick Offerman's character is like, the government shouldn't bail things out, which like they did such a good job, I think, of really helping you see both sides of it almost.
Yeah.
And I think Veep did a really good job of that too. I'm always reminded, because Veep never really writes for what, like, you think that they might be, but Veep really just writes non-partisan, I think. But like both sides are like, and then the other side is like, and you're like, you're agreeing on the same thing.
I know you're agreeing on the same thing. Exactly. And you're right. They did a great job doing that. You're absolutely right. And Nick Offerman's character, he's got a huge following because they don't say it, but he comes across more like a Republican.
Oh, absolutely. They say he's a libertarian. Yeah.
Libertarian. But, the libertarians are like, that's code for, our party kind of thing. Yeah. And he does it because it's so not who he is. And and he does it so well. That's why I love this character, because he was just very straightforward. And of course, when his Amy and Megan Mullally, who played his wife on the show.
Oh, so good.
When she was on, it was just a whole other hilarity to happen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally. Yeah. We actually talked about that in the last episode, because actually in that episode where you have with your scene with Rob Lowe, Chris goes to tell Ron that, I might have offered you a job that I can't actually give you. And Ron says, I want to cut the post office. I want to cut traffic lights. I want to cut 85% of the departments. And it's one of those things where it's a good reminder of how you should write it extreme on the extreme side, so that that it's a joke, because it's a reminder of like, if Ron was a person like, it's funny in a show, but in a real life you're like,
if it was real life you'd be like,
what? No, how dangerous.
I know. They made sure they pushed it far enough for you to realize it's absurd. Exactly. What he's coming up with is really absurd. But that's his moral compass, and that's what he would do if he had the power.
Yeah. And there's another episode that I was watching that you were in, where it's one of those ones where you're just, I'm sure you read it and you were like, okay, is that all you want me to do? Because there's one where Leslie's meeting with Anne, and then she sees Ben running down the hall, and she just runs and bumps into you, and she's like, you don't even say anything. You're just like,
I know. I even
what?
I remember thinking, because I read the page and I kept looking, and I went all the way. I read the whole thing, and I'm thinking, so this is really all they want me to do, is to come through. Because I thought I came back later and said something more, what have you. And I was like, okay. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is why I was thinking, they don't think I actually know how to talk and walk and chew gum. And because that was one of those moments that made me think, they're just using me because they don't want to give me, they just don't think I can act. So they're not going to give me more than what they think I can do. And that's where my mind, that's what I'm saying, the negative talk was coming in as an actor. But they knew what they were doing, and they had reasons for doing what they were doing. So.
Well, and like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I totally understand what you're saying. So I hope that you see in hindsight that's, first of all, I know you know now that that's not what they were doing. But secondly, it's like I think, well, Hollywood in general, kind of, but especially them, I don't think they only bring back people they like, is what I have found. So they're not going to like even think about it's almost even more exciting that they just wanted you to be on set, because that's just a random ass thing. And they trusted you so much to just like stand there and be that foil, which you totally were, because all you did was a facial expression and it slays. It's just like, Councilman Howser, nice to see you, as always.
Yeah. Oh my
your
God.
face, though, you're just like, oh my God, this again? Because by that point, I think they really did. I mean, the first episode, I'm sure that might have been just a one-off. But by that episode, they had really created this persona for you of like, you're just the one that's knocked into all the time. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I'm the one that points out her foibles when she's acting unbecoming of a person that belongs in the office. Yeah. Unbecoming office member. One of the episodes I really loved also is the bathroom, where she comes into the bathroom when I'm in there with Ron.
I wrote that down too.
Oh my God, that episode cracked me up so hard because and what she came up to say at the end, I was like, really?
I know. So she goes in for the audience, just to refresh everybody's memory. Okay, so this was the episode with the gazebo on the Sweetums property or whatever. Yeah, and she's following Ron into the bathroom, and you're in there too. And then she's like, not that I saw anything. I didn't see anything. And then at the end, I wrote this down specifically because at the end she says, I saw your penis. But they did not cut back to you. And I was like, I wanted to see his reaction.
Yeah, I know.
But at the same time, maybe it's good because you were laughing. I don't know.
No. Because they wanted to be, they wanted it to just land and go. Because if they cut back to me, then it would have been, okay, because the joke is really, it's the button of the joke.
You're so drunk.
And I wasn't the button. She was the button.
Yes.
And that's because all those things I learned on set is if you want to put a joke in, you button it. To cut back to me is continuing the joke, and I'm not the button.
Right.
That line, penis is the button, because that's what you remember.
Yes, absolutely. It's like quintessential. I say The Office and Parks are the two I think that really, well, The Office really like kind of created that mockumentary, but that editing I think is one of the most like innovative editing processes. At least I'm sure people were doing it before, but like now that it's mainstream, cutting so fast, because that is like sometimes there were scenes or jokes that like they'd cut like almost 2 seconds too soon, and that makes it even funnier. Like when there's one when Pratt throws up or something and they cut it immediately. You don't watch him throw up the rest of the time. It's just like the initial act of throwing up.
It's exactly, because they don't want to gross you. They let you, because you learn that the imagination sometimes is a lot funnier than the actual visual of what you're showing. And I think they captured that, because it's the same producers for both The Office and
same creators.
So they understood that that way of getting the joke across without show and tell of it.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you too. So, though I was looking up some of the directors that you had worked with over all 19 episodes, and Greg Daniels was one of the directors, I think, for that first episode. When Leslie's riding on Andy's back, and I was just wondering if he, or if you remember anything about that, or if he talked to you about.
Well,
if
that's
he was,
why because he's the one that changed the joke. So.
Oh,
and I was like, and I knew he was one of the creators, so I was like, yeah, they hate me.
No,
I'm never coming back. That was the beginning of it.
Of course, I should have put that together. Of course.
Yeah, they hate me. They're never bringing me back. He's one of the creators, and he's changing the joke because it's not working. Okay, I'm done.
Oh my God. That is so crazy. Well, and Dan Gore, who created Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who's like a huge part of Parks, was the one who directed that one. So, I mean, well, and that was like early Parks, so it wasn't really that, known yet.
No.
So that's amazing, though, that you got to work with them because, I mean, they weren't as big, I feel. I mean, obviously, Greg Daniels was because of The Office.
Yeah, Greg Daniels. But they were all coming together and creating this new TV style because it was a handheld camera, which was happening back with My Name is Earl, was one of the first few sitcoms that was using the handheld cameras and very out there, and so Parks took off on that. And if you notice, they used to talk a lot the first season. They talked a lot to camera. That kind of changed as the season went on. They didn't do that as much, have the interviews that they kept having.
Right.
They didn't do that as much as the season went on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because they have some. They'll throw them in every now and again. But yeah, you're right. It's not as like prominent, I don't think, as the Office, which is not. I'm not mad about it. You don't really miss it that much. It is a different vibe. But yeah, I mean, because then, so I wrote in, I had in my notes that in season 5 and 6, I mean, you were in like 6 episodes each, which was so crazy.
Yeah, that's when I think because she got on the board, and that's when they really started writing for us as a group. And Jam's character was becoming more, and Dex Hart's character was becoming more involved as well. In terms of the writing, they were writing for them as much as well.
Right. I have to ask about the filibuster episode, though, where she's in her roller skates and she's trying, like, she has her overalls on and it's like really sweaty and Jam is making the margaritas and all that stuff. Like, because I don't think. Oh, at the end, you have like a moment when you say, this meeting has been adjourned, like we're good. But you kind of like say it with a smile, leaning towards over to Jam, like, ha, she won. And I just wonder if you did that on purpose or if you were told to do that or if you remember anything.
No, actually, it was on purpose. And it was because my character did not like Jam. In terms of like, I'm there to kind of create the piece, but I side more with what Leslie Knope's character is doing than I do with Jam. Because I understood that Leslie Knope was for the good of the people. Jam was for Jam's business. So everything he was doing was for his business and to promote his dentistry, because that's what he was. So a lot of his choices were self-involved, and hers was more altruistic. So because I'm there to try to make sure things are running smoothly for the community, I would tend side with her more. So that was my little nod to be like, that she got you on that one.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be in the audience, though, or be like on set that day, because I mean, all the crazy things that had happened, with the margarita and the bong and gong, rather, not bong, gong. I was like, this is so crazy.
They kept coming up with stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, they really are taking this to a whole other place. But it works, it worked.
Yeah, totally. There's this one episode, I feel like I wrote it down, where it was a continuity error. Where was it? Because there
a continuity error.
I know. I love catching those. It's so like random, but shoot, I can't remember which episode it was, but basically, I think it might have been when Aubrey Plaza was doing the animal control situation, maybe, absorbing that into Parks. They show the city council and you're not there. And I was like, oh, they must just not have called him that day. Like, I don't know. And then the next scene, you're there. And I was like, oh my God. I guess they just.
I went to the bathroom.
Probably. You're like, you guys can keep shooting. I'll be
yeah,
back.
I have to look at that. That's a good catch.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to headcount. Let's see. I
Good
know
catch.
I wrote it down, but I just can't remember. Facial expression. Okay. Oh, it was the filibuster episode, actually. Okay. Yeah, where Leslie's wearing her roller skates. Yeah, 1 second you're in the chair. It was the filibuster one. It was at the beginning when Ben and her and Rob Lowe's character Chris are coming in to be like, hey, I thought we tabled this. You weren't there. And then when we turn her back around, you are there. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that was in season 6 or something, but it's literally called Filibuster. So yeah, check it out.
Filibusters, yeah. I'll look at that one. That's a good point. I think I remember catching that and didn't. Yeah, I think I remember. I think intentionally. I have to look at it again because I think intentionally they were the board members have not come in yet. They were coming in, and then we came in later. That was the intention. If I remember, is that they were trying to have it on the side without the members being there.
Yeah.
And since it wasn't tabled, then the members had to be there to address it.
Ooh, that makes a lot of sense. I could totally see Jam trying to sneak behind your back.
Yeah.
And,
that was the idea, was to try to sneak it in. And then they were like, no, we're not sneaking it in. We're putting it together.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. That's so much better in my head fantasy because I was like, no, Howser would not pull this back together without Leslie knowing. So that is a great call. They called you or somebody told you and was like, get over here. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask, do you remember, two people. First of all, did you ever have any interaction with Aubrey Plaza? That must have been fun to like see her do the deadpan working with Leslie.
Oh my God. Yeah. I never had any scenes with Aubrey, but I've watched her work and I got to tell you, I didn't know of her before until this show, and her timing and the way she was able to navigate that character and build it as the season went on. I thought she was fantastic. And I always wished I did have an opportunity to work with her, but it never happened because our circles never came across from where she worked and where I worked. We just never had that interaction. But I don't think you guys spoke to each other, but I feel like you were in the council room when she decides to put animal control with the parks department or something. Yeah. But you didn't have any. But we never had a scene where I'm actually talking to her. Exactly. And right. And
but that's awesome. You got to work.
The other person I wanted to work with, I never really had a direct scene with Nick Offerman either. And I always wanted a direct scene with him. With Nick Offerman. That didn't happen, but we would see each other, in between takes and what have you.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And I knew his wife from, she remembered me actually, which was kind of mind blowing that she remembered me from doing Will and Grace with her back in the day.
That's my first nice.
Job. Yeah, which is really nice. So I'd gone to see him. They did a play together, and I'd gone to see them in the play. And waited for him afterwards to say how wonderful, congratulations and all that. And she was like, yeah, I know who you are. And we were talking. I was like, wow, you remember that, which is really, which is really kind. Kind.
I would say that's hard for even like a really nice person to remember because there's so many people that come in and out of sets and stuff. So that's so kind and nice to hear that.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. So
yeah, and I know that the one part with Nick Offerman I remember that you had was when, I think it was during the bailout scene, like the one with the movie dome. And again, you didn't talk directly to him. You were just there. And then the Grizzle one.
Yes. Exactly.
So that must have been fun too, because that's when Jam is like pretending to be Ron to date Megan Mullally.
Yeah, exactly. At one point, I thought they were going to make me and Retta's character, because there was one episode where she mentions my character's name as a potential date or something like that. And I thought, there's a scene where she says something. So it was one of those. I was like, I wonder if they're even going to go in that. But they completely scratched it. But she did. That's when I thought, they mentioned that was earlier on. They mentioned my name. So I was like, well, maybe they might consider to bring me back. Because at that time, I didn't know what was happening with the character. But she had made a comment about it.
That would have been such
So,
a fun side story because I
I
keep
know.
saying I mean they get better as it goes on, but they are underutilizing Retta so much in the first couple seasons because she wasn't
Yeah.
like a main character. But still,
Yeah.
even as a guest star or like a day player, I feel like they should have given her more because I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my god! So I would have loved to see that little side character because she's always dating men, so you could have definitely
yeah.
been a contender.
Exactly. I know. And it was one of those things. I was like, that would have been an interesting side journey with those characters. That would have loved to have seen. But yeah, and she's wonderful. And they found the usage of her later on, and they started using her a lot more as the season went on.
Yeah,
I noticed.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask too if you remember the wedding day for Ben and Leslie, because that's where Jam is shouting into the megaphone and is like, nope, sucks, whatever. And then you read, again, one of those scenes when you just randomly come up and are like,
walk by and there they are acting.
Jam, Leslie.
What are you guys doing?
Where that was that on location?
That was on location. Yeah, that wasn't that was on location. We had they had made, it was a tent. And we had done it outside in an open area where they built a tent in the set. And it wasn't too far from the studio where we actually shot the show. But they found a field where they could pull up the tent, and then we went there and did it there. Yeah.
It's so cool. I can't believe you got to be at the wedding, basically.
I know. I was like, okay, that's because I didn't know, I never know when they're going to call me and what they're going to call me for, obviously. But when I look back at the show and I saw, the 19 episodes, I was thinking, wow, they used me, because I wasn't counting really. It's just when I saw it finally, I was like, wow, okay, I didn't realize I'd done 19 episodes, but I did quite
adds
a bit.
up.
Yeah, it adds up. Exactly.
Were you in the crowd of the wedding too, or was it just like that scene and then you got to leave? Or because I don't know if they really panned over to you apart from that one.
It was that scene. I think I was there for the whole day, for the whole shoot. But that was that scene they wanted me for, and I don't know if they had me because I was part of the crowd at some point, but I just wasn't prominent in it.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. Leslie's wedding dress is like one of the best wardrobe creations ever, like with the newspaper clippings and all that stuff. It's so good.
I know. And I love when she went to Washington and met with President Biden.
Yes.
He was good. He was really good with her.
Really good. My God. Good. And the way they wrote her and the way Amy plays it, I could tell that she was playing so much with it of like, leaning in to kiss him.
I know. That was so hilarious to me. I was like, she is so fantastic. And, just the nerves and wanting. And Ben is right there. He's like, look.
Yeah. And Ben does his classic like look to camera when she's like, "Oh, I couldn't possibly fill Hillary Clinton's seat. or seat. Why would I? Okay, I'll do it." Joe Biden was really good. I feel like he got
really good.
He did the.
I thought he was really good.
Yeah, very apprehensive and kind of like, oh, okay, but still that vibe of like, I guess I'll just laugh along with this.
I know.
I can't believe they got him. That is amazing. That just shows.
I was like, this show has come really far. If you're going to get Vice President Biden to be on the show, it was
and later seasons too, when John McCain, I believe, comes on, and this one other gal, Kelsey. No, shoot, I forgot. It was another senator. A couple senators have come. Madeleine Albright. Like what?
Yes, I know. They were getting some really top notch political figures on the show.
Yeah, because the first couple seasons
they loved the show. They watched it as well and loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really how indicative that's indicative of how wonderful the show was. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt about like in the beginning they were mentioning all of these people. Like Leslie obviously knew who all these people were and everything. But then as we get further on, those people are actually coming on. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a wonderful like trajectory for them.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. I was going to ask you about the filibuster episode when it's supposed to be really hot because Jam takes off the thermostat. Was it actually hot in there, or were you guys like getting water put on you because it was like
no,
for the sweat?
No, it wasn't hot. They keep the set fairly relatively cool for everybody
that's what I was
because of the
thinking.
makeup and what have you.
Lights.
So we were more or less playing at it and spritzing a little bit and
Okay.
having the things. So we added to it.
Okay.
It wasn't that hot because they have, for the purpose of the room and of course everyone who's wearing makeup and what have you, that would have been too much.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what I figured, but I was like, you never know with these
You never know.
documentary shows.
I know. You never know, right? You never know.
Oh my gosh. And then in one of the episodes, or the last episode, I think it was the second to last episode that you were in, you get to introduce the sign to Pawnee, like with the slogan.
Yes.
That was so cool.
I thought that was really, really cool as well. I was like, and thank you for letting me, because I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. And I thought it was the last episode, but it was a second to last episode that I went looking for it, because there was one that I was like, okay, because it was the last season. I knew that was the last season. And I was wondering if they were going to use my character in any of that season, and to have Councilman Howser is the one that presented the sign. I thought that was really a great wrap up for my character.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's also so funny. Again, brilliant writing of Leslie, not trying to be too involved and micromanagey, but then they end up putting the sign the wrong way. And even Councilman Howser is like doesn't know or doesn't care or missed it or whatever.
Yeah, because the guys, oh my God, yeah, that is the writing was really pretty brilliant. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing.
Well, the sign too said, yeah, they totally knew what they were doing. But the slogan says, "When you're here, then you're home," and that was kind of the joke of like they used "than" instead of "then." But I was like, why don't you just say "when you're here, you're home"? Why do you have to even put "then" in there?
Then, yeah, I know.
Again, total Pawnee moment.
Yeah. And if you remember, they had a thing with signs because, sometimes they would use. I remember, was it the Sebastian, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they have a history of using, making things a little bit just slightly off because.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Pawnee,
Totally. That makes total sense. Do you remember where that was at all?
I remember it was outside of LA. It was more towards the valley, like Northridge area. Okay. And we typically shot in the what you call it? It's escaping.
Are you talking about like CBS Radford?
Yeah, say Radford. Yeah, Radford Studios. So and Radford Studios is right in Studio City. Mm-hmm. So we drove to outside of Studio City towards Northridge area. And it was by a park. It was a park in that area.
Cute.
Where it was not a busy park. So they were able to corner a certain section and do the scene there.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. In my research of this show, I've kind of learned that a lot of times if a show is not based in LA, there's only like one little tiny section in LA that doesn't have or won't show palm trees, so that you can get the idea that it's like Midwest. But apart from that, you got to go outside, a little bit outside of LA. Yeah, a little bit outside. And that's where that's why they went to Northridge area, because that park it just had basic trees and what have you. And I don't recall any palm trees or whatever. Yeah, I didn't see it. It totally looked Midwest, like, green grass and, small little road. So they always do a really good job of setting up. But I think that's really wonderful, though, speaking of being on location, that you got to be on Lot 48, which is Leslie Knope's whole, like, where her wedding was, like, which is the whole premise of the show, basically, like, trying to put a park on that show or on that lot. So that's awesome. Yeah.
It was stage 21 was where we shot the show.
Amazing.
Stage 21 at the lot. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And then also, being on the actual like location too, like on the field, the park itself is like so great. I looked up where it was. So when I get back into LA, I should take a little Parks and Rec trip to visit all the filming locations.
Right? And some of the locations that they shot at. It was really, really, and you're talking about this as we're talking. My mind is picking up certain memories of show. Some of it had nothing to do with my character, but what's his name character that had the beautiful wife when we went to the party? I was hoping I was going to be in that scene. Yeah, Jerry's character. I wanted to be in that scene.
Oh my gosh, the Christmas party, you mean?
Yeah. When he had the party, my character was invited because it was, the office department people. but yeah, so that's the one I wish I was invited to, because I would have loved to have been in that scene with her and the girl and the daughters and all of them. Like, how did he land somebody like that? Because it was Christy Brinkley, the model Christy Brinkley, played his wife on the show.
Howser would have had a great reaction shot, I feel. If
Yeah.
like you walk in and see everything and you give your classic Howser like shocked face. It would have been great.
I would have loved to have been a part of that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, is there any other memory because I pretty much have asked everything about, and thank you for staying on for so long. I just had to ask all these questions about the 19 episodes. My gosh. But is there anything else that's striking your memory that I didn't mention?
Actually, you did your homework, Holly. I'm very impressed. You did your homework. You were bringing up scenes. I was like, oh my God, I hope I remember. And then it triggered in my mind when I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is what happened. But I really don't have. You covered pretty much everything. You covered pretty much everything. Thank you.
I mean, I never expect anyone to like really remember everything. So like I always preface it or say afterwards, like, honestly, what you gave me was great because, I mean, well, especially characters that are on for, a millisecond of an actual scene or whatever, it's still big to me. So it's like, I don't expect you to remember everything. You haven't watched it 100 times. Yeah. So anything you can give is great, but I loved it. It was so good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking me back to memory lane and reminding me of the impact that the show had with a lot of viewers, because I'm not always on top of it like that, because I'm just looking at other things and what have you. And I'm always reminded of the impact that, TV and certain shows had, and especially during the pandemic, people really caught on to a lot of the sitcoms, and Parks being one of them, had a resurgence during the pandemic of people just binge watching it and it having a life of its own, which I so appreciate.
Yeah.
And so you reaching out, my agent was like, and you reached out to my agent, and I thought, and they said, you should do this. I was like, of course I'm going to do this. I had no intention of not doing it, because I as an actor, I read, and I said, you were an actor as well. I was like, I always want to reach back and try to bring everybody into the fold and try to support the creative process. And because there's room for everybody, and there's an opportunity for everybody to shine and do what they do. So I was very honored to come on your podcast and do this.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's right back at you. We are so happy that we got to talk to you. I mean, people love the council. Howser is so popular. Like, when I tell people that I'm talking to Howser, they're like, oh my God, what?
Thank you. I had no idea, but thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, and people love Dexhart. We talked to him as well, and he was so
Kevin
funny.
Simmons,
He's so not Dexhart.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Which is the best. I mean, he was so friendly, and he actually had some of the scripts. He said he kept some of the scripts, and he was showing us some of the things that he remembered. And I was like, that's incredible. And you know what? I think I might have reached out I might have wanted to reach out, like, oh gosh, it must have been a year ago now. But that might have been when you were on your break, because I don't know if you had your agents listed at the time or something. So
no, I didn't. I didn't have my I didn't have an agent.
I'm so glad, again, serendipity. When it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen.
Exactly, and here we are. Have you been able to get John on the show? Because he's terrific.
I haven't reached out to him yet. Yeah, I haven't reached out to him yet because we haven't gotten to the thick of his scenes yet. But yeah, I definitely will be reaching out. I hope that we can talk to him, because I'm going to lose my mind, because he was the craziest and the best.
He is the craziest, and he'll have stories for you, because he's such a wonderful guy. He really is. Yeah. He kept us laughing in between scenes.
Yeah. Have you kept in touch with anybody, or do you ever randomly talk to them? Or I know you said you went to the play.
No, Kevin is the one that I kept in touch with the most, actually, because I'll run into him a few times, because he doesn't live too far. I'm in West Hollywood. He's in Studio City. Okay. So I would run into him sometimes at restaurants or what have you, or, we'd catch up.
I would lose my mind if I saw you two at a restaurant. Are you kidding me? I would be like, they're together!
Yeah. So that's usually how we would see each other. And we're Facebook friends. So I'm always catching up with what he's doing and vice versa. So
sure. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I mean, did you get to talk to Amy at all, really, like on the side or anything like that?
Only during the drives we would talk, and we'd mainly talk about kids, and because she knew I worked with kids, and so
Sure.
we'd have that kind of conversation. But I've learned when you're working on a show and you're guest starring, the lead actor has so much to do that you don't want to create opportunities to just do chit chat. If it's something that's important to discuss, you discuss it. But for her, because I know every scene, once we're done with our scene, she's on her mind is click to the next scene that she has to do and memorize and have all these lines to say. So the times that we did get to hang out and talk was in between setting up the lights. Yeah. And so when we're still in the scene and setting up the lights, or when we're driving to location for something. But other than that, once our scene is done, she's on to the next thing because she's in practically every scene.
Sure.
With the show. And as one of the, creators of it, she had to make sure that everything. So she had a lot of hats she was wearing while she was doing her performances.
Yeah,
So,
which is wild. And I know that like people have talked about if they, I don't know, there was one person, I can't remember. Oh gosh, I forgot who it was now. An actor on the show said that they like were just so nervous. They came in so nervous. And so you're not the only one. And I think Amy like got this really, because you didn't have any scenes. Well, like the first couple scenes, I guess, where like the first one was with Amy. Regardless, though, I think she just sensed this energy that he was nervous, and she just like said, "Oh, hey, this guy's name is whatever," and then she messed up the name, and then the guy was like, it's actually," and she was like, "Oh, I fucked up. It's something else," and it just like broke the tension, and I was like, "That is so beautiful."
That is beautiful.
At the end of the day,
that's
like,
who she is. That's
and like she didn't have to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, like. She, I don't know, really reminds me that like if you are the leader, you are responsible for, the environment and you do set the tone. And same thing with Steve Carell, everything I've heard about him on The Office. And so it's really lovely to hear. No divas.
No divas. And that's the thing. I've been fortunate in all the shows that I've done and worked on. I've not had a bad experience in terms of having a diva moment. Parks is probably one of the most fun shows that I've worked on. And the other show that I really loved, and it was because of Ellen Pompeo, was I did an episode, a cliffhanger episode with Grey's Anatomy, and it was my character that pushed her into the water, and we had that whole scene and what have you. So she was absolutely very gracious and wonderful to work with, and was so engaging, and just one of the few actors that were curious about me as a person.
Yes.
Off when we were not shooting our scenes and we were on the downtime talking. She was just absolutely gracious and really loved working with her.
That's so good to hear. I know the Grey's Anatomy people are probably like, duh, but I watched the first couple seasons and then I fell off. But I know it's a great show and I really respect it.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Amazing. Well, do you have anywhere we can follow you on social media or anything that you'd like to promote at this moment of what you're working on?
I thank you for asking that. I'm working on that part of it because I told you I'm just getting back into the business and I'm being told all those things that I should have in place. So I'm working on those things right now. I don't have a platform yet, and I'm working on a website because again, I am just jumping back in, and things have changed when I started in the business and have to get into the social media platform and what have you and do it that way. But
it's exhausting.
Thanks for asking. Yeah.
I mean, I'm fully addicted to social media. It's awful. Like I totally know. Like I do give myself breaks and I try to turn my phone the other way but it's just like, it's an instinct. It was built to be addictive. So I kind of commend people that aren't on it. But at the same time, if you're like a day player actor or just an actor in general, it's like, it's nice to have that almost as like a digital resume in addition to your IMDb and stuff. Because IMDb doesn't always show everything. So
no, you're right. I mean, that's why I have to create a website because my manager's getting on me about that. And also, now I just have a quick question for you. You do musical theater?
I do. Yeah.
My hat's off to you. It's one of the skills I wish I could do. I have a lot of musical theater friends, but I love. Actually, last night I went to see The Wiz, which is touring before it gets to Broadway.
It's at the Amundsen,
And
right? Or something?
yeah, it was at the Pantages.
Oh,
It's at the
Pantages.
Pantages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and a lot of my very close friends are musical theater performers,
Yeah.
but it's one of the gifts that was not given to me when I was in heaven trying to get my life, trying to come down here with gifts. That one was withheld from me, which was being able to stand up and sing and act and do all those things that musical theater people do so well. And I so enjoy that medium of performance.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. The auditions, like I'm not a dancer, so I'm a mover. I can follow a rhythm, whatever.
Mhm.
But these musical
Yeah.
theater dancers that can truly do everything, like can
Mhm.
dance, sing, and act. I'm like, and the auditions, I mean, acting auditions are hard in general, but then when I audition for musical theater, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes it's hours of preparation, and then it's like sometimes you're hours waiting in line or waiting or whatever for the actual audition itself. And like I have so audition season was kind of in like last month. I did a bunch of, because they do a lot of season auditions, and they can like
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
where you want, and a
Mhm.
lot of these were self tapes, and like, you know, if you see them in different cities or whatever,
Yeah.
but and it moves so fast. I mean, I booked my first regional show last year, which was so fun and lovely. It was like a newer play or newer musical,
Mhm.
and it was amazing. But yeah, we had 2 weeks to rehearse, and then it was up. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
really.
God. And that's like the norm. That's the norm.
And to learn music that fast, I mean,
God.
I my hat's off to you. It'll take me a month to learn one song, so I can make sure I hit so I can talk through every note that I'm supposed to talk through because I'm not
Yes.
singing. So
I
my
mean-
hat's off to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I mean, it really is a passion, and every day is different. Every audience is different.
Mhm.
I mean, it lights me up. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. I can see that.
Well, I
Well-
will make sure that your IMDb at least is tagged in our
Okay.
show notes and everything.
Yeah,
And then
please
once you
do.
get the
Yeah.
Instagram, follow us. We're on Instagram. I can email you
Okay,
so
great.
that you can follow us and we can, you know, keep up with you and
Definitely.
everything.
And I'm on
But I
Instagram. It's just
really
Yvans Jordain.
Oh,
So,
you are?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Yvans Jordain on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I'll find you.
Yeah.
And then I'll tag you and everything so
Okay,
that people
great.
can follow you.
All right.
But Yvans,
thank you.
thank you so much for coming. This was so great.
Holly.
I'm so glad that we had a spiritual moment too. I
know.
you're my people, so I get it.
Yeah, you're my people too. And I got that energy from you just from when your email response. You can read people's energy on email in
I
terms
think
of
you can sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm so honored and grateful that you sought me out to get me on the show with you. Thank
Yay,
you.
thank you. Yeah, and also, to be honest, like I'm very transparent on my emails. Like I talk the way that I text, and I text the way that I talk. Like,
Yeah. And
unless
that's
I'm
why I got that.
in
I
a
got your
corporate
energy.
information. I don't know. I mean, I can do it in a corporate setting. I've done it before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and I don't have smiley faces. But if I'm like, you know, doing something I'm really passionate about, you'll know.
Yeah. And I totally got your energy. I was like, oh yeah, I would love to meet her. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, well, if
Thank
you're
you
ever
so
in
much.
Nashville, keep me posted. I'll
I
show you
will,
around, or I'll tell you
definitely.
some good spots
Oh,
to
that
go
would be
to.
lovely. Thank you. I'm going to hold you to that too, Holly.
Listen, and then if I'm
Yeah.
ever in LA, you, me, and
Yeah,
Kevin
definitely.
will have to hang out.
Yes. Hit me up. Definitely.
Okay. Well,
All right.
thank you so much. I appreciate you
You're
so
welcome,
much.
Holly. Pleasure.
Have a good day.
To you too.
Bye.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
You too.
There's a Parkinson Pals and there's also therapy too.